Equality Initiative, Professor Felicia Noor, Professor Manta Sin, as well as the co-sponsor, Justice for All, and Dr. Malik Martin. In the next 10 minutes or so, what I will do is address three issues. One is the issue of Rohingya identity and the history, because there's so much misperception, myths, and confusions about who Rohingyas are. Are they fake ethnic groups? Are they indigenous to the country of Burma? And then the second is the dynamic of persecution, and specifically why Rohingya, of all the ethnic groups, why Rohingyas are targeted. And third and finally, I will present the 3 years findings from the 3-year studies I conducted with my co-researcher and wife that has been published in the Pacific Rim Law and Policy Journal from the University of Washington Law School under the very title, The Slow Burning Genocide of Rohingya. So firstly, who are the Rohingyas and where do they hail from? Well, the Rohingyas are essentially the borderland people who live on their own ancestral land, which is the narrow tip between Bangladesh and Burma, present-day Bangladesh and present-day Burma, about 171 miles long border. And the unique feature of that narrow strip of the coastal line of Arakan is that it's sandwiched between the Bay of Bengal and a geographic barrier known as Arakan Range. As a result of this geographic isolation, most Burmese people have never, ever, including myself, set our foot on this soil. We call Arakan by its ancient name, or Rakhine by the new name. So when you have this type of geographic isolation, and the rest of the country is vulnerable to all kinds of propaganda. And where did they come from? Well, they did not come from anywhere else. The Rohingyas are there on their own ancestral land. If you look at the 17th century map published by various geographic and cartographic organizations, the northern Rakhine state of Rohingya has always been predominantly Muslim region. The population ratio between the Muslim Arakans, Muslim Rohingyas, and the Buddhist Rakhines is 1:3. But the Burmese government generates this misinformation deliberately, saying that there is a Rohingya population explosion. And the second point about the Rohingya identity is that the earliest mention of Rohingya, referring to an ethnic group that were of Islamic faith, is in the late 18th century, around 1790. That was the earliest trace. But during the colonial period, when racial categories were created based on what at the time was considered scientific ideas about race, and race was fixed. Race or ethnicity, or identity for that matter, is never a fixed thing. It is always in formation, influx of people coming in and out of different identities. There's a voluntary element of political allegiance and identification across all ethnic communities in Burma and elsewhere. So the racial categorization in the British censuses did not include Rohingya, simply because the British colonial administrators, semi-educated about the race and ethnic groups, in the 19th century does not mean that the Rohingyas as a people did not exist. Fast forward to say 1963, pre-genocidal Cambodia. The censuses there in 1963 claimed that 94 or 95% of Cambodia was made up of pure Khmer, pure in quotes. And whereas in fact, in reality, there were Chinese, there were Vietnamese, there were Cham Muslim people there, and who made up about 18 to 20%. And by a stroke of the government census policy, about 15% of the non-Khmer population were erased. Yeah? So this is the type of things that we find across different countries. Census as a matter of essentially political control and administrative manipulation. And did I press something? Okay. But now contrast that reality of Rohingya as an ethnic community that has been on their own ancestral land since several centuries. By the way, you do not need to prove that you have been in Burma since 7th century AD to qualify as full citizens of the country. But in the official narrative, as well as in the popular narrative, these people have been categorized as Bengali from the neighboring Bangladesh, or like former East Pakistan. They were considered illegal migrants. They were considered, because they are a Muslim population concentrated in a single geographic region, they're considered an Islamic threat, in quotes, to the Burmese national security. And in the popular narrative, they are portrayed as viruses, invaders. If you have this is like virus is a medical terminology. Invader is a military terminology. So if you've got viruses and invaders, what do? You expel them, you attack them, you eradicate them, you attempt to destroy them. Yeah? So people actually in genocidal situation do not see the humans that they are killing as humans. They first construct an ideology that allows them to feel that they are defending themselves while they are attacking massive number of people. And then okay, how do I go to the next slide? Sorry. Okay. The third element about the Rohingya identity. It wasn't like Rohingya claimed that we have the right to self-identify according to international human rights law. No. For the first 10 or 15 years of Burma's independence, Rohingyas were recognized officially both by the highest level of government, the cabinet of Prime Minister UNU, and the highest level of military command from the Ministry of Defense. This is from this is an article written in Burmese language by Ne Win's second in command, Deputy Chief of Armed Forces for Army, explaining that the Rohingyas and Rohingya elders and political leaders had a negotiation on how they want to be known. They did not want to be called by racial slur like koto or kala, which essentially means nigger in the Western sense. So they said, we are Rohingyas, please address us as Rohingya. And the Burmese military and parliamentary democracy government accepted that. So there was an open, negotiated creation of ethnic identity. The next slide, please. And then the Encyclopedia of Burma. This was published by the government printing house, where this region, Northern Arakan State, was clearly defined as predominantly Rohingya Muslim state. So we're not even dealing with the international law. We are looking simply at the Burmese primary official sources. And now the Burmese government denied that the Rohingyas ever existed in history as an ethnic group, as an identity, and they are the ones who are forging a new identity and claiming for an ethnic right, according to the Burmese narrative. Another slide, please. And so now, two issues I want to address before I save 1 minute for the last one. The two central narratives, or misnarratives, or false narratives that inform the policy debates around the world. One is that the Rohingya problem is a communal and sectarian. Despite the fact that there is a communal or sectarian aspect to the conflict in Rakhine State, it is not communal at all. It is actually centrally directed by the Burmese government since 1978. And then related to that first false narrative is that, you know, the ethnic conflicts, violence between different communities are unfortunate but almost inevitable part of, or aspect of any multi-ethnic country transitioning from, you know, dictatorship to a more open society. That is so factually false. We are looking at the Far Eastern Economic Review article from July 1978. There are about 141 pages of documentation, mostly press clippings from 1978, that indicate that you know, this problem, the attack on Rohingya, the violence in Arakan State, preceded the Burma's opening by about 35 years. And then finally, just 1 minute, the next slide, please. I think the central problem that we are confronting today, actually I would say until 2 days ago, until the US Holocaust Memorial Museum, a very influential leading research entity on the issues of genocide, has come out clear and saying there are 8 dangerous warning signs of a genocide in Burma. Burma is not walking into a genocidal space. We are not talking about a potential or next or preventable genocide. We are there. Burma is committing a genocide, according to the US Holocaust Memorial Museum. And the main problem of framing this issue as a genocide is the public perception. The public perception sees the genocide as simply mass killings. Whether you define genocide sociologically, broadly, or stick with the narrowest definition of a legalist approach, this is what we ought to stick to. 5 articles of the Genocide Convention, originally adopted in 1948, became Article 6 of the Rome Statute, much recent. And so there are 5 articles. Mass killings, that's what we know. But I think the genocidal act that is unmistakably being committed by the Burmese is the Article C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The intent is in the actions, in the policies of the Burmese government. Finally, if you deny this community of nearly 2 million Rohingyas access to basic life-supporting services over 36 years, you have a scenario where the community is being destroyed. This is a genocide that is burning slowly. This isn't a dramatic genocide like Rwanda in the 1990s, where nearly 800,000 people were killed in 100 days. This is in Srebrenica, where 5,000 were killed in a day. This is in Khmer Rouge Pol Pot's Cambodia, where 1.8 million people were documented decimated in a span of 3.5 years. This is a slow-burning genocide over 36 years. Thank you.